Has it occurred to you that inflation, cost of living, health, unemployment are the most controversial political tools of our time? And this is simply because they are the easiest of data to manipulate to fit someone's narrative. Now, while there already exist structured institutions mandated with these roles and even more specific roles to collect, prepare, analyze, verify data into credible information, it then leaves the question as to whose duty it is to provide this credible information is not then a question that you would leave to any politician whatsoever, because they have proved time and again not to rely on information or data from these institutions, but their own data that serves them, that serves their narrative, their motive, their intentions. And it therefore leaves these institutions paralyzed, more or less crippled, you know. And what then happens when the very people we pay to keep the government honest are called liars by the very same people they audit, you know? And this is the most dangerous pattern I'm seeing in Kenya right now, because it's not a debate about numbers, but a deliberate attack on these institutions established by the Constitution. And for example, the Cabinet Secretary for Education disregarded the data from Kenya National Examination Council about a possible 150,000 students possibly dropped out. They did not graduate from junior secondary school. They did not sit their final exam to join senior secondary school. And here's a video of the Cabinet Secretary disputing the data and further giving his own reports from where we don't know, where they are, and it's not true. They are conflicting data from both the Kenya National Examination Council and the World Bank. But still, they want to come up with their own figures and their own data.
However, the Cabinet Secretary for Education cast doubt on the validity of the figures presented there by a NEC official.
That came out was not actually the correct information, because the transition rate from grade 6 to grade 7 is 100%. The transition rate from grade 9 to grade 10 is at almost 99.8%.
And you see, the Auditor General, the Control of Budget, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics are being gaslit when their own data exposes corruption or failure. The system doesn't look to fix the problem. Instead, it attacks the messenger, making the system look broken, more so that they can break the rules or so that they can ignore the rules. And here's a video of the president calling the Auditor General mad. You just imagine that.
30 million Kenyans will be on social health insurance. And this week, forget about the propaganda in the headline of the news that we lost, some 50 billion can be lost. You know, people are mad.
You see, the president is not a source of information, or rather is not a source of data. And the executive too is not a political tool to manipulate data to fit the government's narrative or position. You know, because, well, the president as the head of the executive is the primary source of statements, policies, directives. He makes the decisions. He's a communicator, but he's not a source of data. And data cannot flow from the president or otherwise backward to the institutions. Because one thing the government knows is that it cannot change the reality of the economy. What the government can do is manipulate or twist the data people see, you know? And one thing that we must understand is that when the president speaks, it could be treated, or otherwise it is, the authoritative position. That is to mean that's the government's position. But whether that position is based and supported by fact or credible information, well, that's a whole another conversation for maybe probably another time, you know. And while there already exist these structured institutions established by the Constitution, the Auditor General, the control of budget, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, government records, official database, government documents, ministries, these are essentially the credible sources of data. Therefore, when the president comes out with misleading information, conflicting data, you might want to ask then why we have these institutions that are not regarded, or these institutions that the executive can bypass, the very institutions that are meant to make the government look honest. Now, one of the most blatant attacks to these institutions is the Statistics Bill 2026. This bill seeks to move or centralize data collection under the Treasury. This moves data collection from an independent auditor into a political office, into a political tool, because the Cabinet Secretary for Finance is an appointee of the president, and therefore, time and again, he or she must serve the interest of the president or the executive. Now, why do they do this? Is simply because a broken system is a flexible system. Now, by discrediting these institutions' data, the government can, one, justify spending. Oh, the system is failing. We must bypass regular procurement. You know, they can hide ghost workers. Time and again, the Auditor General has flagged ghost workers. But then the government keeps calling this information fake. And what that then means is that it will still continue paying ghost workers. The government can continue blaming technology. They will say, oh, it's not corruption, it's a technical glitch. And so on and so forth. But then these aren't just offices. They are constitutional commissions. They are independent for a reason. Therefore, when a senior politician calls their data fake or otherwise, they aren't just insulting individuals. They are tearing the very 2010 Constitution that we so much love and respect. They want a system that is accountable to the executive and not to the taxpayer. Is the system broken, therefore, my question to you, or is it being sabotaged from the top? When we stop believing the Auditor General's report, the Control of Budget's report, Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics, and start believing politicians in rallies, then we lose our only yardstick to the truth. Now, if you are already here, please subscribe. Thank you.